Okay. Hello, guys. Hello, guys, everybody. Welcome to Creating the Conversation podcast on Me and You education platform. Guys, it's awesome having you today. It's been a week and a half, guys. It's been brilliant. It's been marvelous. Ivan, my man, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Imran. All good today. Had a nice, easy week. Just chilled out, so I'm more relaxed and refreshed.
Brilliant. So we're going to have a bit of a conversation and discussion. Guys, this is your host, Imran Muhammad, and of course, my man, Ivan Humble. Guys, we have an awesome opportunity, right, this week to speak to someone who has worked in the community as part of the football scene for many, many years. In a few moments, I will introduce the gentleman, but I'm going to say, Ivan, last week's show was a big up show, bro. It was a big up one. We had awesome time. And shout out to Tezilias for coming up and making that show awesome.
Yeah, that was a cracking show. That was, wasn't it? Great conversation as well. Down to earth. Lovely bloke.
So today's guest is another individual, another person who has been within the football scene for over 33 years of his life. And of course, we're going to talk to him about his life before football and before he fell into the love with this amazing sport of football. Of course, it's none other than Keith Hicks, who has been for Rochdale AFC Community Trust manager. And he has retired this year, in fact. And what a man, what a guy. I'm going to bring him on. And then I'm going to tell you how I got to know this gentleman, all right, and how we got him to come to this particular podcast today. Keith, how are you, my man? How you doing? Are you okay? Are you well? Welcome.
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation today, Keith. You know, you're the man. Thank you very much. I know you're chilling, you're relaxing. Maybe I've taken some time off your chill time, but tough luck, mate.
What's life if you can't talk with your friends? You know what I mean?
I agree, and let me share this with you. You use the word friend, and I hopefully I can also see you as my friend, my brother, because I think I got to meet you because of a brilliant project, your last project that you did for the Rochdale AFC, and you've done an awesome job in the time that you've been there. Let me just throw this up. Let me just throw this image up. Can you see that image? Yeah. This is Sunday morning, guys. Ourselves, our team, us Irfan, our boss Ivan, of course, myself, the different families that joined us, and of course, you got the beautiful face of Keith there as well, as you can see. This is how we got to know this amazing man, Mr. Keith Hicks, and we've been in conversation straight after that, in fact. And I said to him, look, we have a podcast and we would like you to come over. We'll have an open conversation about a number of things, and especially about your life. So, Keith, before we kick off, how did you feel about the project?
The project was awesome. It went totally bigger and better than what I expected. When I found out about this program about 6 months ago, it was just a program set up by the EFL Trust. The EFL is obviously the English Football League, and we have a separate arm of the EFL Trust, which is all about community. There's 70 odd clubs all over England, as far up as Carlisle, as far down as Plymouth, and everybody in between. And we do different programs. Obviously, most clubs in the town, different towns have different issues, different things that are going really well, different things that are not going too well. But we were pulled by.
I think he stopped. Keith, are you still with us?
Yeah, he's back.
Sorry, guys, just a moment. Of course, technology does have these glitches. Let me get that back in.
He is coming from Rochdale after all.
What are you trying to say? The technology in Russia is not that great, mate. You know what I'm saying? Is everything okay?
I'm still there.
Ah, he's back. He's
We're
back.
back. Sorry.
So no, it's good. It's all right. You're all good. You're all good. That's brilliant. You're fine. What matters is you are good. Okay, now we were just talking about, of course, the last project that you've done with Rochdale FC, and I know you have been a community trust manager for a number of years. But Keith, I want to start from the start. I want to start from this young man coming to this world in 1954 in Oldham. Tell me when you were born. Tell me a little bit about your life in Oldham at that particular time, and share that with us. Because hopefully, even later on, people will listen to the podcast and they will get to find out more about you than just your football career.
Yeah, so basically, like I said, I was born in 1954. A young lad, he had a sister who was 5 years older than me. We moved very quickly from Ollingwood, which is the suburb of Oldham. We moved up onto an estate called Oaks Estate. And with the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, I mean, predominantly that estate was full of white British people. You know, you didn't see any black people. There was no Asians up there at the time. It was just a solid white community. 2.4 people in the family. Obviously, two adults and whatever kids. But that was just the way I was brought up. I went to a school just predominantly a white school. I didn't see any ethnic minorities. It was just all white kids. And then
would you say that was just because of ethnic minorities not being here? Because my forefathers, my grandfather came in 1959. Do you understand? So our communities from the subcontinent started coming in at that particular time, right? So there wasn't an influx of people from them parts of the country, but then parts of the world. And of course, you were brought up at a time when that didn't exist. So of course, the demographics of where you were was predominantly white. So it's very normal.
I can't remember at all when I was at the primary school, I took at the age of 11. I cannot remember seeing anything other than white people at our school. And then we went to a grammar school for 1 year, and then the council in Oldham decided to go comprehensive. So we then moved in with a school from then the other side of Oldham. And when I came across my first kind of Asian lads, we had about half a dozen Asian lads.
How old were you then?
I was 12 then. And
how was that? How was that as an experience for you, Keith?
Well, like I said to you before, Imran, we've had different conversations. You know, because we were possibly something like about 98% white people in that school. We used to pick on you pick on the minorities for whatever reason. And at the time, I was probably too young to understand what I was doing. But again, because other people were doing it, I'd join in. Basically, I'd verbally abused the young Asian kids. I mean, to be fair, we give them a bit of a dog's life, if you can say it. We give them a bit of a dog's life, and that's just the way things happened at school. But obviously, as you grow up and you become a bit more older and whatever else, you realise it's not really the way forward, is it? You know what I mean? And I started playing football in the 70s, and
you told me that you were I think you were about 8, weren't you, when you really got into football?
Yeah, I'd play football at school, and at primary school I was half decent. I actually played for Oldham schoolboys at primary school level, which is under 12s. So I must have been half decent. And then as I
must have been half decent. You were a career that way, mate.
Yeah, but you know, there's other people who are exactly the same. There's other people who are just as good. It's just you live in a bit of a bubble, don't you? And I went to high school, and my sports teacher, he said to me, "Oh, listen, Keith, I think you've got a really good chance." I was then playing for South East Lancashire under 15s schoolboys. I think I can get you a game at West Brom or Stoke. I can get you a trial. And I think I told before, my old man, my dad, he was a massive Oldham fan from the 50s.
Yeah.
When he got promoted, he all talked about two players, George Hardwick and Eric Gemmell. That's all they ever spoke about. The chief scout came from Oldham down to our house, and he said, "You know, can we just sit down?" He brought a bottle of Guinness, so I signed for a bottle of Guinness. And he just said, "You know, I know you've heard all these stories about these different players going to Everton and Man City. There's talk of Ford Capris and Ford Escorts and all kinds of stuff as like as an incentive." He said, "But we can't afford that, Oldham. All we've got is a bottle of Guinness." And my dad said, "You know, he's got Oldham anyway." So just
So the money that we see in football today wasn't there, was it? That's what you're saying, aren't you?
absolutely not. And I signed for £6 a week as an apprentice.
Wow.
And I tipped up £3 of that to my mum.
Wow.
And then obviously, before the end of the week, I'll be going back and saying, "Come on, mum, lend me a quid because I need this and I need that." So yeah, £6 a week. And then in my second year apprentice, I was on £8 a week, jumped up massively by £2.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But you know, I've been in football all my life. I see the money that's going about now, and I still say I would do exactly the same again. Given the same chance, I'd do exactly the same again. Cracking, you cannot beat a career in the football industry, whether you're playing, whether you're coaching, whether you're doing the community work. It's just a fabulous thing to be in.
Let me show you this. Let me show you this image. What was this?
Great tackle, eh? That's great, isn't it?
Tell me when that happened. Do you remember?
That was when I was playing for Rife back in the 80s. And you can see there the guy used to have a bit of a. I can't believe people used to say this. They used to call me hard but fair.
I can see it's because of the mustache that you had there.
That's been called a lot of things about mustache, but yeah, and you can see the guys obviously skipping out at work because I was going to come through. Because like I said, I used to, back in football, back in the 70s, 80s, you could be nasty and get away with it. And we used to always say, as a defender, if you're up against a decent striker, give him a dig. First challenge, give him a dig, let him know you're there. But you could guarantee during the rest of the game you get a dig back. Well, that's how it was in those days. You could give it, but you knew you were going to get on the end of it. These days, you see these players now. It just kills me watching modern day football because it's just not like it used to be. And the biggest one for me was Dropper. Remember Dropper at Chelsea?
Yeah.
About 6'4", about 15 stone. And if you blew on him, he'd fall down in the box. It's like, very great. If he was nowadays, we'd be embarrassed to play with him. We really would. But that's the way football's gone now.
It has gone. I think you're right, because you were much more hardened individuals. And of course, like you said, coming from £6 whenever the season was, and then got to £8 because you got a bit of a progression or something. And it wasn't the love of the money, it was the love of the game. Yeah. And that's what's really powerful in the old timers, understanding of football itself. Yeah.
If you speak to ex-players like myself, they'll always say, "What is the one thing you miss about not being in football?" And they'll always say, "The changing room." It wasn't about the money; it's about the change room. Just the little gags, the little jokes, the little tricks. You get into your socks one day after you've had a training session, and the toes have been missing. Somebody cut the toes out of your socks. Things like that. Just and it was like that every day. There was always something to keep you on your toes, and you had a great crack with the lads. The lads were fantastic, and it's still like that with the community job now. I still enjoy going into the club every morning. As soon as you drive through the gates at Rochdale Football Club, it's only Rochdale, but as soon as you drive through the gates, you feel as though you're in a totally different environment to the rest of the world.
And it is because I think you have a very powerful presence. And talking about presence, I think there's the thousands of young people that you have inspired and worked with. And I'm going to throw up another image. I want people to watch and see this. And I see the enthusiasm in you, sir, in the way.
There's a great story about that. That was my first ever session. That when we started the scheme in 1987, that is a special needs school. That's an SEN school in Rochdale, and that was our first ever session. I had 2 bags of footballs, bibs, markers, all that kind of stuff. And I'm doing the session, and I'll turn around, and while I was doing the session, one of the little kids had opened up the bag, and they were rolling the ball down the driveway into the school. And I thought, well, this is an experience, and after that, I thought, yeah, the kids love it. I mean, what we do. We take players into school. I used to take players into schools. Yeah. As you know, on that Communities United program, we had Calvin Andrew, who was a black player. Yeah. And his presence on that session that day was unbelievable because the kids, especially the kids, you just look up to football players. The footballers can tell people that the moon's made of cheese and they'll believe them, honestly.
And that's what makes it, Keith, I think that's what makes it really powerful because football is a universal sport, right? And I think it's not only about, For some people, it's just about kicking around the ball. But it's not only that. It is the most of the famous names on earth at this moment who are doing some amazing things, not only on the pitch, but even off the pitch. When we say, oh, this lad's got the heart, he's got the heart, his heart's in it. Why are we talking about the heart? He's only going to kick around the ball. But because we look at this person not only on the pitch, but we see him outside what this person does. And I think that's what, in a lot of ways, we forget that. And of course, you speak about the game, you speak about the players. But Keith, it is the fans that make the game.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, at the moment, as you know, we're playing to empty crowds, and it's the football's for the fans. At the moment, as you know, we're having a bit of a struggle at Rochdale with the backroom staff, the directors, and all that, and the fans are up in arms. And the football club belongs to the fans. It don't belong to the directors. It don't belong to the players. It belongs to the fans. The fans run the football clubs, and they're up in arms at them because they're not getting what they expect. And fair due to them, they go on Facebook, they go on Twitter, and again, we'll probably touch on social media in a bit. It can be good, it can be bad. It depends on which way you use it. But as a little example for us about the impact of players, we do some stuff. It's called U versus Train. We have some funding from Network Rail, and basically to get the kids away from the rail lines, especially when you've had this lockdown since more or less March last year, and there's nothing for them to do. So we get one of our players out, like old Jim McNulty, who's our skipper, and he delivers the video, and you just know that's going to have more impact on the kids than anybody from Metrolink or Network Rail or anybody. That's going to have more impact on the kids than anybody from those two organisations.
See, that's what football is for me, and I know Ivan is the same, because what we don't realize is how ingrained football is within our communities. In fact, some of the greatest work. Look, we did a project a few years ago with Man City, and I'll tell you, the work that they've done around in that whole area is phenomenal. The academy, the pitches, the places for people can come in around. I'm talking about from Manchester, Mancunians can come in and take benefit from them facilities. Now that's what football is about. It's not only about going in, buying your ticket, season ticket, going I'll just stand there and do my thing and get a shirt, which is all good. Like you said, of course, you have this camaraderie, you have this understanding about people. I say this, when I'm a fan, I don't know how the hell this is going to go down. I'm a Liverpool fan. Being a Liverpool fan, oh my, it's hit me. What, that was deep. That was deep. I can't see. That's what I mean. The type of reactions that we get is really, really powerful. But through that particular, identity that I have, Keith and Ivan, it's made me understand about being working class, being part of a group of people whose culture, whose skin color, whose religion, whose background is different to me, but what unites me with them is that red shirt. Yeah. And the thing is, I feel the same passion as they do, and I could stand in the same stand, make the same chant, right, and not feel anything different. But the sad thing is, and this is what I want to bring in, Keith, as well, and I hope Ivan will also join in this particular discussion around this, because you spoke about that first time that you came across someone who was Asian or of a different color was at the age of what, about 14, 15?
11, 12.
11, 12 years old. So first experience of people who are ethnic minority and etc. Of course, it wasn't something normal. It wasn't something that you had come across when you were really young. You were living in a particular part of Oldham. Of course, you moved. Now, what happens then? Your relationship with ethnic minorities and black communities at that particular time. Come on, let's go through that. Because I think so that's what builds. Because we're talking about football as a community venture, and they are also part of the community. But like you said, the experience was different. In fact, it's more of a dog's life than anything else.
It was for the young Asian lads, and like I said, I take no pleasure, no, anything at all of that. It's just that it's what was the norm back in the late 60s, early 70s. When I played for Oldham, we didn't have what's called an ethnic player in our team until I think it was in 73, 74. I've been there since 1970. We've not even had a black player in our team. And then suddenly we brought this guy up from Bournemouth, a guy called Alan Groves, who turned out to be an absolute legend at Oldham.
Legend, yeah, he did.
And I think the first time we ever saw him, he was actually playing for Bournemouth against us, against Oldham. When he was going on a bit of a decent run, and he was a bit flash. He was really flash. He had the beads on around his neck, and we beat Bournemouth 3-0. But 2 weeks later,
Look, slightly just threw it in there. We beat Bournemouth.
We beat them 3-0 actually, and it was the start of a run that took us as champions of the third division, the old third division, which is now Division 1. But it was the start of our run, so we had this guy playing against us, and like I say, he was flashing, he was doing all these tricks, and he was a different colour to us, and we all thought, who the hell's this? But our manager signed him. Our manager said, 2 weeks later, he signed him, and we were like, what have you signed him for? You know what I mean?
Why that reaction?
I think it was two things. It was one, like I said at the time, I go back, and again, I might be saying something wrong here, but there used to be a program called Love Thy Neighbour.
Oh, we remember that.
I think Ivan will probably remember that. Remember Love Thy Neighbour with Jack Meadows? It was basically
I remember that.
Yeah, it's about neighbours, white neighbours, black neighbours, and the torrent of abuse of each other. It wasn't just white against black; it was black against white, white against black, and the torrent of abuse. Yeah. But it was funny. It was made to a comedy series. That's just the way it was in the 70s. And we've gone so far forward since then. And I don't really know why there was this attitude about, people coming over to England and possibly taking food off our mouths or taking positions off us at work or whatever it was. But there was this fierce, probably the unknown factor, or the fact that people were coming in and taking your jobs or whatever. There was this awful kind of like racism. And like I said, this guy played for us called Alan Groves. We used to go to away games, and again, because he was a good player and he used to torment, opposite fullbacks, he used to get awful abuse. He'd have all kinds of stuff thrown at him. He didn't get the banana thrown at him, but we were close to getting to that banana being chucked onto the pitch and things like that. And it was just awful. And recently, I watched a video of when I played for Hereford at Bournemouth, as it was, and we had a young black winger called Winston White.
Yeah.
And every time he touched the ball, the abuse was unbelievable. It wasn't from a couple of people; it was from a full stand. And it's like I didn't even realise it was going on. Unless I put it in my mind because I was so involved with the football, I don't know. But we pushed things like that to the side because it was a thing to do. But now I think because we're a very, very open society, much more than what it was back in the 60s and 70s, obviously. And I think it's just the way forward. We're a multicultural society, and we need to know. And this Communities United program I've done, it's shown me different things. Even it's just like food. We had a session on food. It was just the different kind of foods that I just thought Asians, curries, that's it for me. But on that session we had, there were so many different meals,
dishes and cuisines, and so many different backgrounds. And no, I agree with that, Keith. I agree with that. But at the same time, the reason why what you bring to the conversation, which is really, really interesting, is from the perspective of a white man. You understand? Typical white guy. Yeah. You. The thing is, what needs to be understood from a minority's perspective as well, as minorities who came to this country, what a lot of people don't realize is they came from like India, they came from the subcontinent, they came from the West Indies, right? These were colonies. These were British colonies. Now, the people from them colonies, they saw Britain as their motherland.
Yeah.
India itself was occupied by Britain for nearly 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, all the infrastructure, all the education, all the learning was about Britain. And Britain as a civilization, as a people, who were they teaching? They were teaching people who had color, right? Yeah. Who were ethnic minorities. Suddenly they turn up at the motherland. And what needs to be understood is that a lot of people don't know this, is that there was a hierarchical color system. So the white was right at the top, and anyone who was, slightly lighter and lighter and lighter, and the most blackest and the darkest skinned people were right at the bottom. So if you went to the West Indies, it would have been the same. If you went to India and the other place, it would have been the same. So, so what all of these ethnic minorities had in their brain was that the white man can never be a commoner. A white man cannot be working class. But suddenly they come into England, they're seeing a white person sweeping the streets, white person working in the mills, white person, doing some of the most hardest type of labor that you can even imagine. That was a shock. I remember my own granddad worked 15, 16 hours, all right, in a mill in Britain, right? And we're talking about straight after Second World War, where Britain was on its knees. And I'm giving you one example, and there's millions of men like that, right, who had done that initially without their wives, without the kids being here. And Keith, that's the other side of the story.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
I'm just going to add there as well, Imran, that, like I said about the Commonwealth, people from ethnic minorities fought for the Commonwealth in World War II. If you look at World War II, there were Indians fighting for Indian, whatever. There was people from the the Caribbean who were fighting for us. So that's always been forgotten. That we actually had people who were fighting against the Germans, the Japanese, whatever, who were coming from your ethnic minorities.
I get that, but the thing is like we can look back at it and say that. But Keith, at the time when this was happening, of course the experience was different of the people who came. Now, I get it, because there was a bit of a political game as well. We had the likes of Powell, if you remember him, Powell, who had given his statements, and it didn't help, because the common working class white community suddenly got onslaught of people coming into their communities who initially from their own countries weren't working class. They weren't working class. These ethnic minorities that were coming in, they weren't working class. They were fairly educated people. They had some knowledge and understanding. All right, they spoke and read English. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But suddenly they've been thrown into a situation where they're going, 1 minute, this is a bit of a culture shock for us as well.
Yes.
And it was a culture shock also for the white communities. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. That's the bit which is not spoken about. We don't like talking about that the sentiments and the feelings of the white communities, when suddenly you've got these people coming into the country and sometimes genuinely feeling they're taking our jobs. And even though they haven't come to take your jobs, they've come because this is the motherland of the empire which was built and created by the British themselves. Mm-hmm. So suddenly, guys, coming back to yourself, Keith. So during that situation, you've come into football, right? And you said you saw a trickle here and there of footballers coming in. Now, the reason why this is important in conversation, Keith, is what we're seeing today. What we're seeing today. We see the reminiscences of history, of the past, of what's happening with players. We see what's happening with footballers today. Of course, it's much more subtle in a lot of ways. But take me through the journey of being in Rochdale, and especially working as a manager of the community trust, and then in comparison with working with ethnic minorities, if there were any, or were they getting an opportunity to come in?
Yeah. So going right back to the start, I mean, again, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of trouble at football matches. I don't know if Ivan's been involved in fights inside the ground. Back in the day, the fighting was always inside the ground. It wasn't outside of now, where they meet up about 20 miles away from the ground and they have a bit of a tumble, a bit of a rumble, but then they go and watch the game. Well, there's a lot of fighting inside grounds. I think there was a game then in Luton where there were seats thrown at the away fans or the rival fans. So a couple of lads who worked with the PFA, Gordon Taylor, Mickey Burns, they decided that they were going to set up a scheme where you'd use a football club as the centre of the local community in an effort to pass on advice, pass on the players' feelings, and try and get the community working together. So it was all about hooliganism at football matches plus racing. Because obviously, like I said, I saw an incident in England. England were playing in an international. John Barnes was probably one of the best players England's ever had. Skillful players. because England wasn't doing too well, we weren't doing too well. We were getting beat by team whatever. Every time he touched the ball, he got booed. It was shocking. English people booing an English player. Obviously because of his colour. He didn't pick on any other player. They didn't pick on Kevin Keegan or whoever was playing, Paul Gascoigne at the time, whoever it was. They picked on John Barnes because of his colour. So with all these issues around football and the bad press it's getting, like it's getting bad press now about the social media, about, again, it's gone back to colour again and racism and all that kind of stuff. These two lads decided to set up a scheme, and it started with 6 clubs in the Northwest. And it went so well in the first 6 months that they brought another 6 teams on, 6 football teams, and we were one of them. So our remit at the start was just to go into schools and just make it a fun thing at the school. We do go in with the footballs, like I said before.
What was the scheme? What was the scheme for? What was the?
It was called the Football and Community Scheme. Mm-hmm. As it says, it's football and community. So it was getting the football, professional football, going out into the communities and the individual clubs, and promoting the football club and all the good things about football. Because like I said, you've got the players who go out into schools, players come to our sessions, they just promote all the good things about football. And it just kicks on from there. And like I said, we started off at 1 school, 2 schools maybe with part-time staff. And now, the remit around the borough now is unbelievable. We work with kids from like 4 or 5-year-old all the way through to the senior citizens. We work with kids with disabilities. We work with people who have mental health issues. We have a keep fit sessions for the older people. We just do absolutely everything. We've got education programs. We have health programs. We have social inclusion programs. We just do absolutely everything. It's all targeting the club as a centre point of the community and all the good things that we can do for Rochdale in particular.
And then the larger community as well. And Keith, you spoke about John Barnes, and of course we know many other black and ethnic minority footballers. Especially now they're coming up, they're talking about their own experiences, they're talking about the type of slanders that they get in on the pitch itself. Even we're talking about their own fans on their own side, or using type of slurs and etc. against them. Now, one thing is these individuals going through it in isolation, they're going through it on their own. But there's another thing about the rest of the team as allies, as giving them support. Was there anything like that in early days? Okay, fine, there's a black player, he's a minority in the team. What were the white players doing? How were they engaging?
Again, I think the white players, I don't think they really got involved. I don't think we were there to support the player. I think we just thought, he'll be okay, he can man up. Back in the days, in the early days, everything was like man up. Now you've got all these people who can help you out. You've got mental health issues. Back in the day, when I was a young kid, in fact, I was bullied. When I was a young player at Oldham, I was bullied. I was bullied by 2 or 3 of my own players because I got in the team when I was 18. I wasn't meant to play in the first team till I was like maybe 19, 20, whatever. But the first team centre half, he got injured the first game of my first season playing at Oldham, first proper season, and I was just expecting to be playing the reserves all that season because he was such a good player. But in a pre-season friendly, this guy got injured, and then when he came back, when he got over the injury, I was like playing the first team. I was like, but I was playing really well. I was in like a proper season pro, and he couldn't get back to the team. So his 2 mates decided to take out on me in training. So I get called also. So if I misplaced the pass, he'd be like, "Oh, he's crap! How can he be out of first team?" But I was 18. There was nobody to help me. I had to man up and get on with it myself, and that's how it was back in the days.
So what you're saying is a culture that was built in, right, of manliness. They didn't really care of your skin color as well. They didn't care about that. They just cared that if they were getting the opportunity to do something or not. Really, if someone else was stepping on their toes, they will make sure to put them in this place, like they did to you.
Like happened to me, yeah. You have to look after yourself, yeah, and that's ashamedly that's how it was. But now, and again, I think something that's going well for the players now is that you see so many now black players in teams.
Yeah.
Like I watched a game a few weeks ago. I watched Brentford, and I think there were 7 black players in that Brentford team. So I think they've got a bit of a friendliness between themselves. it comes through, and I think the stuff on social media at the moment, I think Thierry Henry's come up with a great thing, saying he's going to go away with the Twitter and all that kind of stuff. He's going to stop it, and I think that's a great thing because at the moment there's no deterrent for these people to actually come out with this stuff. The keyboard warriors, they put stuff out there, and you don't know who they are, and they get away with murder. And I think we've spoken about this in the past, that with football being the biggest sport in the world, I don't care about anything else. Football is the big.
It is.
It's a place where you can just do something, and it'll so many millions of people, and that's why they do it. There's been racism in cricket recently with Yorkshire Cricket Club. There's been racism around.
It's tribal.
Yeah, and it's not really gone anywhere because cricket. I love cricket, but it's not really going to go around the world like football does. So you've got football, which is there, and you can make a statement, and because millions of people love football, you've got that in, aren't you? You're in. You can say something.
You do. I'm going to pull this up again, this image, because I want you to talk to us about, of course, the type of students that I was types of young cadets that were coming in through football, right? And of course, Rochdale itself is a very diverse community. You have people from all different backgrounds, people from ethnic, from Indian, Pakistani, Bengali background. You got people from the black community, from West Indies, and etc., and many other African countries as well, and from Eastern European. And it is a melting pot of many communities, but it's not reflected as much. And maybe you can shed some light on this, Keith, please. Is that it's not as reflected in the team, in the Rochdale FC team. What is that? Why is that? Aren't ethnic minority players good enough?
I don't really know. There's been some theories that have been thrown out in the past that the Asian families, they don't particularly want their sons to be footballers. They'd rather than be doctors or whatever it is that goes around these days. I don't know, but I don't think I've seen one Asian kid down at Rochdale Football Club. Who actually, I think he was an apprentice many years ago, and it's something that I don't understand. We've got quite a lot of black players, but we don't seem to get Asian players coming through.
If you remember. Let me just hold you there. If you remember, Keith, in the project that we've just done with the community cohesion one with Me and You Education. Now, of course, there was a gentleman there by the name of Abbas, Abid. He said Abid goes. Yeah, if you remember, Abid goes that for over 20 years, I literally stood outside. He's from the same area where the football club is, and he goes, I literally stood outside and used to look at this place. And what we used to do was when we knew it was match day, we used to hide.
Yes,
we used to hide.
And I don't really get it because Rochdale Football Club has been a family club as long as I've been there. But I do know that there has been some incidents, not for a long time, where people going to games and coming home from games have been verbally abused by the locals. People on Spotland Road, which is like half a mile away from the club. And on the way home, these Asian families, they've suffered abuse. But it's not football abuse. It's abuse from people, away from the club. But because they've gone to a football match, it's been levelled as it's been a football issue. Well, it wasn't. It was people being verbally abused outside of the ground. You know what I mean?
No, I know. I do get it. I do understand it. But of course, within Britain, we have always had this issue around football hooliganism. Yeah. Which we are well known for. We're well known for in Britain, in Europe. We're well known for other parts of the world. All right, when we've had a few, all right, or our people who support football clubs and etc. Right, the fans themselves, when they've had a few, you're gonna get a riot. That's what tends to happen. Now we get that bit. We understand. Okay, fine, it's camaraderie, having a bit of a laugh, it's your team. We get all of that. But the thing is, there are certain communities, and the reason I share this with you is that because what you said regarding a lot of ethnic minorities communities, they don't really encourage their kids to come forward, especially Asian kids or kids from India and Pakistan, and they probably will encourage to go towards cricket, but not as football. Yeah. And it's a lot. It has to do a lot with the culture of football as well, because like you said, if you look at the 70s and 80s and come towards the 90s, even now where we are at the moment, the attitude and the culture is a very difficult culture sometimes, because it is you still have that environment of the other, that environment of, yeah, fine, I've got the same shirt as you, but because I look slightly different, right, or might have a different color of skin, it still becomes a problem. Now, see, that's our experience from this side.
Yeah.
But how do you see it? A person who's in there and a person who would go out, scout for players.
Well, again, there was this thing back in, it was like the late 90s where it was, if you can get an Asian player in your team, the Asian community will come out and watch that player. And I was always a bit skeptical about it, but it happened with a guy at Bury. I can't for the life of me think his name, but it was an Asian guy who played for Bury. But there was not many people from the Asian community that actually came to watch him play. So I don't get it, but I really do not get the fact that we can't get Asian players. And I don't know whether it's because, again, if you look at the black players, they came over to England a lot earlier than what the Asian population came over. But it's something to do with that, I don't know. But there's no reason why we can't get a good Asian player in our team, because I think this thing with the this Community United thing, I think that's going to draw out a few things there, because we're asking those families now, as you well know, for them to get involved. There they are. Is that Sanya or Sanya in the family?
Yeah, that's Sanya and Kareem family. We've had, of course, the Khan family. Yeah. Right. We've had, of course.
Hey, look who's there!
Yeah,
there's Scott.
And as guys, as you can see, there's a very diverse, and the 10-15 families that we had. In fact, let me just throw this up as well. As you can see, all these different faces, different culture, different background, different religions, all right, and everything. That's what made it really, really cool. And of course, this is one of Keith's last projects that he's done in Rochdale FC, and of course, being a manager around the community trust that he's been part of for many, many years. And I think it is credit to him and credit to his team that they've tried to do this. But of course, I'm part of a community which sometimes feels marginalized, feels that, okay, we're not wanted. All right. Now, like you were saying, I don't really understand. And maybe that's where the problem is that we're not finding the middle people who are ready to take that dive and say, you know what?
From our point of view, it's like we're doing a community cohesion program. We'll decide what we need to do. You know what I mean? We've had a couple of cohesion officers back in the past.
Yeah.
What kind of perspective for all this is that, yeah, we're running a community cohesion program. We got some funding for a year. This is what we're going to do. But we never consulted with the people in the community. You know what I mean? So I think with this community program that we're doing now, I think Ryan, who's taking over, he wants to step a step further. And he wants to step to the football club. This is Ryan. Look. Big shoes to fill, mate.
Very posh.
Oh, they're very big. I know they are.
I think what we're saying now is that
I think
families a bit more and find out what they want, and then we'll make the decisions in consultation with them, rather than just say this is what we think we should be doing. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. I don't know.
Go for it, Ivan.
I think that's the one thing. That's the one thing about the project. We had 10 families. And if I remember rightly, I think there's 20 different origins.
So
there's a proper, complete sort of mix-up, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? We definitely got to learn a lot about a lot of different people that we'd never even thought about with that project. It was more than what we expected, I think. That was the power of that.
Well, we have people from Iraq, and we have people from Palestine, people from Turkey, Poland. It wasn't just like Asians and us. It was like a mix of everybody. And like I said, I think we got so much input from outside of people saying, yeah, we do this and we can do this and we want to do this. And it's like
we also got some Vikings in there. Do you remember that one?
We got some Vikings, brilliant. I tell you what, the songs now. I think the film's from the Vikings, and I can't wait to see myself on that film.
That was awesome.
Douglas Snow with the chin. So if anybody can watch that film, I think it's tomorrow. It's on tomorrow, maybe Monday or something. Yeah, I can't wait to see that film.
Brilliant, Keith.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Okay, just want to throw this in now. I want to take the conversation towards something slightly different to that. Is that, of course, we spoke about and discussed about your origins, where you came from, your background, understood where you brought up in Oldham, and your interaction with ethnic minorities and different people from different backgrounds. And of course, that's been part and parcel of your experience, right? Now, you've tried from your perspective, as you feel that, being in that particular position, going into different schools and different environments, encouraging them to be part and parcel of not only football clubs in the per se of playing football, but larger than that. Because like the point you made, which was a crucial point, the football clubs are not just there to get people in, get people off the street and onto a pitch. No, it is about community cohesion. It's about community engagement. It's about looking after the most weakest in the community and doing other projects as well. And like you have done many in your time. Do you want to shed some light on some of the projects that you have done in the last 30 years?
I think a really good project that'll probably bring all this together. We have some funding from the Premier League through the PLCF, which is the Premier League Communities Foundation or something. One of the projects is a project called Kicks, which is getting the kids off the streets at night time. So we go into various venues around Rochdale, the traditional time, 6 till 8 on a Friday night, Saturday night, getting these kids off the streets, getting them doing something that's getting them involved with things, just playing football, doing other stuff, social action projects, all kinds of things. The club signed a young kid called Fabio Tavares, who came up from Portugal to England when he was about 4 or 5. And he didn't come to have a project specific to be a football player. He came because his mates were coming on a Friday night down to Kingsway Park, Leisure Centre, and the Leisure Centre in the middle of town. He was picked up by the club as a young kid. I think he went on a trial through his school. He finished up playing our first team. He's now been sold to Coventry for about 350 grand or whatever.
Wow.
But we now take it, before he left Rochdale to go to Coventry, we were taking him back into the soccer schools and saying to him, just do a little speech about, your what's called your life, your career. And straight away, I used to come on Rochdale Football Club activities. I was spotted by the what's called the coaches, was passed on. I went for trials. I played in the first team. Now we're giving all this back to you. Now, if you do what what the club asks you to do, and if you get involved with the club, you could be me in about 10 years' time. And that's exactly what we are. We're taking young kids, giving them a bit of coaching, whatever, giving them stuff that you can take run for the rest of their lives, and then he goes back and he delivers that back to the kids, and that's absolutely perfect for what we are. And
that's quite a positive. That is.
That's very positive, and I think that's what you need. And I believe that it also matters that the clubs themselves are ethnic minority friendly. Now, one of the key things, and of course, I know Ryan, who's thinking of doing this as well, trying to build on your legacy, Keith, is that he wants to be much more inclusive. He wants to include individuals and etc. from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions. Right? Like for example, when we turned up in the club, of course we were saying, okay, where halal food, for example, or kosher food, for example, or things like that, which are alien to a lot of people. All right, This is our club, this is our space. How dare you? Do you know what I mean? Now, I get that bit, but the thing is, 1 minute, it's my club as equally as your club. Do you know what I mean? Now, see, a lot of people feel that regardless of what we are and how we are, what religion or what background we are from, we have the same sentiment and we have the same feelings. We're not regarding that affiliation connection with that particular club. Now, of course, I wanna touch on our final very big, area of discussion, and then we'll wrap it up around, what your final legacy would be and what your advice would be for newcomers and new footballers and new people in very prominent positions. But I want to bring in something which is of great tension. It's around football and child abuse. Right? This has become a massive area of conversation. And Ivan, I want you to shed some light on this. And I want you to start off a conversation around this, please, with Keith. And we are really, really, grateful that we can have this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's like it was if racism wasn't enough problem, this popped up now. I watched that first part of that documentary the other night, Keith, and to be fair, that was a hard watch. I haven't watched the others yet. I don't know if I could face it yet. Do you know what I mean? It was definitely a hard watch. Do you know what I mean?
It gets worse, Ivan,
and I bet it does. But
it's one of those things.
I just got no words to explain it. Do you know what I mean?
No. Well, it's like, I mean, I was playing golf on Tuesday and I met 2 young kids on the second tee. You know, these kids were about, I think they were like in the early 20s. And one of them recognised me. He'd actually been on one of our soccer schools many, many years ago, even before, Siobhan was around. So it must have been 20 odd years ago. He was on one of our soccer schools and he come up to me and he said, "It's Keith, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I remember coming in your soccer school. It was one of the best things that I ever went on in my life." So he must be like late 20s now. I said, "What do you do now then? What's your job?" He said, "I'm a gymnast coach." And I straight away I looked and I went, "Oh." I said, "How's it going?" He said, "Well, after what's happened in the football stuff that's been coming out recently, it's been awful because obviously people associate gymnast coaches, swimming coaches. It's not just football. It's anything that involves people with kids." And it's like, you know, they used to say back in the past, it used to be vicars, scout leaders, all that kind of stuff. But now, and the thing is, it was well known around the football circles back in the 80s about this Benno. I knew the rumours about this Benno back in the 80s. And it makes you think because, again, my son, Graham, he used to get lifts home from training when he was at Oldham Athletic. He played at Rochdale, but before he came to Rochdale, he trialled out at Oldham when he was 14, 15. And he would get lifts home from his coach. And I'm thinking back now, wow, has it? And I asked him a couple of years ago, I said, "Did anything happen on your way home?" I'm not going to name the coach, but I said, "Did it happen that?" And he went, no, nothing happened like that, Dad. Nothing happened at all. But it's in the back of your mind now, isn't it? You know, and the FA, you know, they've been slaughtered about it. But we had this directive many years ago about do not have anybody under the age of 16 in your car on your own. And that's going back 20 years now.
Wow.
But yeah, this, like I said, Benno, they knew about it. The guy who's been on, Paul Stewart, the lad who played for Man City and Tottenham, I played against him when I was playing for Hereford at Blackpool, and he was a massive, big bloke. He was a villain on the football pitch, a centre forward. He was hard as nails, and I saw him break down. It's the second time I've seen it because he actually now delivers seminars for young kids, you know, like the scholars at football clubs.
Yeah,
about his experiences. And I can't believe it. I've played against him and I've thought he's not me around when I've been like playing football against him. But he got sucked into that thing where it's, if you want to be a football player, you have to do what I'm telling you. And if you don't, and like I say, if you go into like the second program or the third program, there's instances where players, young kids, they've got to about 16, 17, and they've not really got involved with that side of it. And they've just been released. The career's just been finished, not because of the bad players or not good players, but because they wouldn't
comply
with the coach. And it's like, oh, it's awful. But like I said, it's been known for years and years and years and years. And I think
that was the hardest thing, I think, watching the people break down.
Yeah.
Reliving it and then breaking down was the hardest bit to watch. I think one of the things that stand out was when he said, the lads, we all knew one, and we used to walk past and give each other that little sort of a nod and just kept silent. Do you know what I mean? It was unbelievable.
I mean, it's awful for the kids, but again, for me, the worst thing in that must be the parents. They had no idea what was going on whatsoever. And, you know, when that Benno said to Paul Stewart, I think it was Benno said to him, like, if you tell your mum and dad, I'll go and stab them. It's like, it's just awful. It's just awful. And the way they kind of present themselves in court, it was like, no, I don't know. It's just not right. But again, it's like I said, it's not just football. It's other things. It's other sports. But again, with football being the biggest sport in the world, it's just like
the big sport.
So, gents, let me ask you this then now, because this is a massive, you know, story, and like you said, you know, the experiences of these men. And Keith, what you said, these are men. They're not men's men. And of course, the culture they are from, you know, be a man, that type of thing. And of course, they had to hide, they had to put into the most deepest parts of their psyche what had happened to them, what had occurred with them, and the experience that they have. And I'm going to say credit to those individuals who have come forth and shared that, because the area where I work in, I do a lot of work with victims of abuse, and of course the perpetrators or the predators themselves as well. And one of the key things I realize is the lot of predators, I'm not saying all, but some of the predators themselves are abusees. They are also people who've been abused as well. And sadly, that happens a lot in different sectors. But one thing I want to throw in here, and I want you, and genuinely, gentlemen, I want both of your views on this. Rochdale and the grooming gangs became a massive story.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is huge. And Keith, you just said that it's gone, we can go back 20 years. We knew what this was happening back in the days. Why doesn't the media, why doesn't the community, why doesn't the Rochdale white community get up and scream and shout about this, point fingers, say, look, this is what's happened and this is what we need to do about it? And Ivan, let me say this from your background. People who come from the EDL background, etc., they will stand up, they will go to mosques, they will go to places like that. We've not seen anything like that around football clubs. We've not seen that around people screaming and shouting and saying, oh yeah, this is happening to our kids and all. Why is there a double standard, gentlemen?
Maybe just by some of the conversations I have and the things I see online, it could just be simply the football one could be done by individuals, but the grooming was done by a pack of people. It makes it sound a bit more horrific. Although both sides are horrific, but when it's a pack to an individual, I think some people think that's worse than an individual.
I think the worst thing for me is that people, like I said, people have known about it. People in authority have known about it, and the steps haven't been taken. I mean, with the football side of it now, we have to go through so many measures these days as a football club, through the EFL, our own communities, EFL Trust, safeguarding children. It's the most paramount thing now ever. Forget about the actual playing of football. Before anything starts now on the football pitch, safeguarding children is the biggest issue now in football. Forget about your first team. Forget about our problems at Rochdale Football Club at the moment, bottom of the first division. The most paramount thing now is make sure that we've got all our safeguarding children measures in place. It's that serious. But it should have happened 20 years ago. It shouldn't be happening now. It should have been done 20 years ago. But, at our football club, I can honestly say we've had no issues with any kind of grooming or anything like that whatsoever. It's a fabulous place to come to, Rochdale. You're as safe as anything. My grandson plays at Rochdale at the moment. And, I can't think of him being a better club. I know the people inside the club, the academy director, Tony Ellis. He's 100% behind making sure everything is right for Rochdale Football Club as a young person.
And many decades to come as well, because I think that legacy that you've left, Keith, is awesome. And I think your dedication to the youth, the community at large, has been phenomenal, especially from the projects that me and you, education, and I got to know you, and Ivan got to know you, and of course Irfan got to know you. I'm going to be blunt and say this, I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to see you, proud to meet you, proud to call you a friend. Because I think what you're about, what your ethos is about, what your reflection and your philosophy is about, even though you've come from an environment where there is a dominance of particular ethnic or particular majority, but you are very inclusive. You're like, listen, let's do this. We need to do this. And I think your presence on every Sunday morning, there, first person, we can see that dedication of a true coach, a man who would be there for the ones who probably need him the most. And like you said, the relationship between the coach and the players is usually more of a mentor, more of a model, more of a father figure. And sadly, some people have taken advantage of that and abused. but there are many, and there are many, in fact, majority of them are like you, who are decent people, who engage with young people, who want the best for young people, and they have made careers of their lives because they've engaged with people like yourself. Keith, any words, any reflections? Because we spoke about a lot of aspects and elements, and we've touched on many elements of those things which are outside of football to a certain extent in your life, and of course bringing that in, seeping that into football. But I want to leave some of your thoughts and reflection. I'm going to come to you in 1 minute, but I'm going to ask Ivan to maybe share some thoughts and reflections of today's session that we've had with you. So that'll give you a few minutes to think about something that you want to leave for the listeners that are listening to Creating the Conversation podcast. Go for it, Ivan.
Yeah, I just think, like what Imran said about that project, it's brought a lot to a lot of us, not just your participants, but to me personally. Do you know what I mean? My past, I had a really negative view of Rochdale because of the grooming gangs, but taking part in delivering that project with Imran and Irfan, it's given me a greater insight into the bigger picture of Rochdale, which in turn I'll be able to use in my future work when I'm disengaging people. So thanks for that, and enjoy your retirement.
I can't retire. I'm still doing stuff now. I've been into the club today. I've been playing walking football today. I've been on the kick pitch playing walking football with the senior citizens. Absolutely loved it. Different ball game whatsoever to like proper football, but absolutely loved it. And I keep in conversation with Ryan quite often. He'll ask me for little bits and bats, I'm always there. And I've told him that I'll always come down and support the football club. I'll be going to the game on Monday. I'll be sat in the stand, chucking balls back into the onto the pitch when they go in the stand. I just love football as a whole, and I think you learn all the time. And I'm still learning now, even though I'm getting to the ripe old age of 67 in August. I'm still learning now, and this program that we got involved with, which you two lads have been absolutely superb. The way you've brought it over, the commitment, your enthusiasm, and obviously Irfan is like the lead, if you like. It's something that I didn't even think about, and there's things that have come out of that I would not have thought.
Let me throw this up. This came out of it.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff is brilliant. And a couple of highlights for me has been actually seeing young kids who've been on that 5-side pitch when they were 5 and 6, like Jamie Allen, who moved off to Coventry, Fabio, who's one of our kids people. It's just really nice to see people coming through on an active that we've done, and now they're playing professional football and they're moving on to bigger things. And obviously, you've met Siobhan, haven't you?
We have, yeah. Let me throw this up. I love this picture.
Siobhan is typical of the way our football club.
And that's your whole team.
Yeah, there she is. Look, brilliant. She was a person who basically dropped out of college when she was 17, and she didn't like the way things were happening at college. She came to us as an apprentice, and at the time, again, this is maybe something controversial again. We probably only took her on because she was a female. Because at the time, football was male dominated sport. Yeah, never mind black or white or whatever. That it was just men, typical white male. That was it. That was football. You're in the community program. And she came along and she's grafted. She's done all her awards. She's a fantastic person to work with. She's very intelligent. She's been on the educational courses, and now she's the community manager. And that just sums up what we are. We go from being a young kid, going all the way through the steps, and now you're something really good. And just going back onto the way Rochdale's perceived, 2 or 3 years ago, we played Spurs in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And I always remember I spoke to this CEO at the club at the time. He said he'd been approached by a journalist from down south who came up to Rochdale, and he came up basically to do a story on all the bad things about Rochdale. The flats, you've seen the flats in the middle of town.
We have, yeah.
Grooming, yeah, he's seen all that, and he wanted to do a story. And the chief exec took him straight. First, he took him down to the town hall, around the town hall. Took him then a little area around there, and then he took him out to Allenmouth Lake, which is a beautiful part of the town. And when they finished the conversation, about a couple of hours later, the guy went back to London and did a totally different piece on Rochdale, because he said, to be fair, he said, I came up with a lot of negativity in my head, but I've gone away with all the positive. Rochdale, beautiful part of the town, top end, Northern, Bamford up there, beautiful then there.
Beautiful.
And the actual town centre itself, beautiful. The church,
it's one of the most beautiful in the country,
Yeah, the town hall is beautiful around there. Now, little around there, if you want to have a little beer, sit down and have a beer. It's just a beautiful part of the town. And so I'm going to go back home with a different view of Rochdale. Well, that's how people saw Rochdale, grooming, the flats, and it's just totally not like that whatsoever. And the people, I've got to say, I come from Oldham, so there's a bit of rivalry between Oldham and Rochdale, but northern people are second to none. Sorry, Ivan, I know you come from like down south or whatever. But northern people, they're the most friendly people in the world. The one thing they don't do, like people think of Coronation Street, you just don't walk in somebody's house and have a cup of tea. we are really friendly people.
Put the kettle on, I want to brew.
David Barlow, Ken Barlow, yeah, go and get a brew off them, yeah.
It
doesn't happen, but yeah, that's how people perceive it. That's what we are, really friendly people.
And I agree with you, and I think that's the key thing within being Northerners, being part of this. Well, and the thing is, and one of the key things that came out for me, Keith, around the whole project and except that you've done with all these different families, really, all different background, many origins of existence. Like you said, Turkish, and from Iraq, from Palestine, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from India, from wherever we were from. Do you understand? But one thing united all of us was that we were in this country. We were English, we were British, and of course, all of them, they were Rochdalians. Do you understand? And beautiful thing was that when you guys spoke to each other about it, you spoke about football. And I think that's what's really, really cool, because there are many, we say this all the time. This is our strap line. We just say there are many things which are common between us than that divide us. And I think that's exactly what football does. It takes out the commonalities and it shows them. And I think on the back of that, with your reflection and your thoughts as well, which I want you to, Keith, come on, give us something that you say of your 30 odd years that you feel, listen, guys out there, do this will work to sort out the problems that we have. Give me something, Keith, please.
I think this program that we're doing now will be the start of massive change in Rochdale. Because like I said before, we've always done things that we think are right, and rightly or wrongly. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not good. But I think with this, the presence of this, like, it's going to be a kind of a committee, a kind of like steering group.
Yes.
And we're not going to say we want to do this. We're going to set the steering group, which will be your Deals, Abids, what's the young female called from Poland? Can't think what she's called now. It'd be like, what do you think we should be doing? Magdalene. Yeah. So instead of us saying like, this is what we're going to do, it'd be nice to say, what do you think we should do as a football club? And maybe we'll touch on those groups, and they will give us feedback, or give Ryan feedback, that he can make it a far better program than what it has been. And I know the chief executive of the club are 100% behind this, because they want to see more people coming to games, not the mercenary thing, but they want to see more people coming and being involved with the football club, watching games, being involved on programs outside of the actual games, to try and make the football club at Rochdale the focal point of Rochdale and its surrounding areas.
And that is the power of football. Thank you, Keith, from the bottom of our heart, for joining us, having this conversation with us. We've touched on areas and of discussion, conversation, which probably a lot of people have not heard from you before. And we are very, very grateful that you've shared your thoughts, your reflections, your expertise, and your understanding. From the bottom of my heart, and I know Ivan, my man, as well, thank you very, very much. My man, look after yourself, take care of yourself. Guys, you are listening to Creating the Conversation podcast on Me and You Education, YouTube and Facebook. Hope to see you guys next week. Please, when you come and see and watch this program, leave some comments, leave some reflections, and you will definitely get a reply back from myself and Ivan as well. And we will also share that with Keith. Keith, don't go anywhere. Look after yourself, guys, and God bless.